Celebrate the incredible women transforming cricket. Metrobank are proud to honour 3 amazing leaders through the Metrobank Champion of Girls Cricket Award. From Anna Davies at Chichester Priory Park Cricket Club to Emma Williams at Ammanford Cricket Club and Sarah John at Sefton Park CC. These women are accelerating action and driving gender equality forward. Check out their stories in the episode's description. Hello and welcome to the Wisden Women's Cricket Weekly podcast. England are off to winning ways under Nat Sciver-Brunt's captaincy. They beat West Indies 3-0 in the T20Is despite a totally extraordinary individual series from Hayley Matthews. It's not all good news for England though. Former skipper Heather Knight, who is in fine form with the bat, has been ruled out of the English summer, though it is hoped that she'll be fit again for the World Cup that starts in India at the very end of September. I'm Yas Rana, and with me today are Ben Gardner and Katya Witney. Lauren Winfield-Hill will be joining us shortly, as will Hampshire skipper Georgia Adams ahead of the Vitality Blast. Let's start with Hayley Matthews, 100 not out of 146 in the first game, 3 wickets and 71 not out of West Indies, 127 in the third. Ben, is she the best player in the world?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
So yeah, not to say something very obvious, but she's right up there. And it's extraordinary how she's kind of changed from 2023 to like at the start of that year. Basically, she went from being like, West Indies best player, fine, but a player who like actually overall you could see she had a lot of potential but didn't quite stand out, to now being absolutely astonishing. So 2023, for example, in T20Is up until that point, she'd averaged 18, striking at basically a run.
Did she really? But she averaged under 20 up till 2023.
Up to 2023,
wow.
and in ODIs it was averaging 27 with the bat, striking at under 70. And since then, in T20I, she's got the best average of any full member player, the most runs in the world in that time, striking 128, which is right up there. And with the bat, there's basically, if you like, having played a decent number of games, players who average 50 striking at above 90, it's basically her, Nat Sciver-Brunt and Smriti Mandana. So those are 3. But then also you throw in the fact that Hayley Matthews is a proper all-rounder, whereas Nat Sciver-Brunt obviously an all-rounder, but bowling a bit less here and there. Obviously this summer it seems like she's not going to bowl much. And actually you look at the era of kind of great all-rounders is kind of ending a little bit. There's a few more kind of coming through, and so that's the case for, and it's a very good one. The only thing I was kind of wondering is, like, does she stand out so much in that West Indies side? There's such a big goal thing, like, well, she has to be the best in the world, and you do wonder if she were in like an England side, how would she kind of fit into that? And in franchise cricket, her record is good to very good without being quite one of the world's best. And you'd say that Nat Sciver-Brunt has the edge on her there. I mean, it's just an interesting thought experiment, and it's just, I suppose, one of the things of cricket is that you have to play the role in the team that you're in, and the role that the team Matthews is in is that she has to do absolutely everything all of the time, and she does that as well as anyone could ever kind of hope to do, I guess.
On that point of like the gulf in the West Indies side between Hayley Matthews and literally everyone else being so big, I've always been kind of, maybe skeptical is the wrong word, about whenever there's an amazing Hayley Matthews innings, tags onto it is lone effort, and it always makes it sound better. And I've always felt that. But then I was at Canterbury for that 100, and watching that 100, I actually think it just makes her even better because of the way she played that 100. She had to be on strike. It was the whole marshalling strike. You could see her getting exasperated with everyone else and being like, I'm just going to do this myself, and being able to do that. And then even when England came out and Sophia Dunkley played an amazing innings at Canterbury, Hayley Matthews was by far and away the best batter on the field. And you can also argue that the 71 she scored in the final T20I was better because she actually nearly got them into a position where they could win. I do think that I do worry that the point we're at with West Indies cricket now is going to detract from her overall legacy. I said it on the Daily previously, but it's a travesty that she's not going to be at the World Cup in September, because that should be where the best players are able to be on display, and she's not going to be there. But I do worry that West Indies cricket has got to the point now where Hayley Matthews can't be that lone player who pulls them up anymore, that the gap is now so big that she cannot make up for it on her own. And I do worry that those opportunities, she's only 27, she's got a long career ahead of her potentially, that those opportunities are not going to come her way because of just how far it's slipping.
Yeah, it's one of the talking points of the series that West Indies semi-finalists in the last 2 World Cups, 50 over and T20, you look at them and you're wondering where the next generation of players are coming through. because it's not since Matthews really coming into the team nearly a decade ago has someone come in and looked like they can be up there with one of the best players in the world. So that's a big concern for them. On the broader question of how Matthews stands up against the best, I see that you can sort of flip it either way in terms of is being the only world-class player helpful to getting these scores. But just look at what she's scoring against the best teams. She had that series against Australia a year and a half ago where she went 99 not out and then 132, then 79 in 3 T20s back-to-back. Look at what she's doing against England. She is doing it against the best teams in the world. And that level, at a very basic level, that's very hard to outdo.
And that 99 not out was a stunningly similar scorecard to the 100 in the first game, because Kash and I were trying to basically work out, is this the lowest total in women's T20I cricket to contain 100? And we eventually worked out that it was. But when I saw that innings on the list that I was going through, I was like, oh, well, that must just be from this game and it's not updated yet. And I was like, oh, no, wait, actually, that was 99 out of, I think, the exact same total as it was in this game. And so you can't even say, I remember that freak innings when Matthew scored all of her team's runs by herself and, got a massive score, because she's done it, several times now.
Well, we're saying West Indies don't have DeAndre Dottin or Janelle Henry for this series. So much, as you say, so much of the series was basically England keeping her off strike if they could, let alone getting her out. In the first game, she faced 39 of the first 60 balls, but then just 7 of the next 24, and that was when England took control. Katya, that Heather Knight news that dropped this morning is huge. Her 66 in the third game was her highest score in 3 years. Charlotte Edwards on the podcast before has said how it's almost a bit lost from the winter how well Heather Knight was playing herself, given everything else that was going on. A, how big a blow is it? And B, how will England replace her?
It's a huge blow. I actually felt quite sad when I saw the news, because it felt like this was kind of Knight's time to really kind of shine. I mean, I feel like it's not just over the winter that it's kind of detracted from how well she's been doing, but her captaincy in general has kind of overshadowed just how well she's performed with the bat. You think about that T20 innings in Australia. She's such an integral part of England's middle order, and she's so reliable. That's why there was never a question of, when she resigned as captaincy, is Heather Knight going to retire? No, she's not, because she's performing as at one of the highest levels. And it is going to be a big blow. A lot has been made previously about Knight in the T20 side maybe not having the right strike rate, but that has also she's really improved that over the last year, so she's integral in both formats. Particularly in the ODI side though, England kind of selected just the top 7 for that ODI side. It wasn't quite clear where the spare batter was coming from. They now have added Alice Capsey to the squad, so there's potential for Alice Capsey to be given a go higher up the order. They've also got ADR, Alice Davison-Richards, in that squad, so there's also potential for her to move up to that kind of 3-4 position. Nat Sciver-Brunt also isn't going to bowl, so that means that England might shuffle around their order a little bit. I think what'll be more interesting is if Knight isn't fit for that for that World Cup later in the year, and Nat Sciver-Brunt is fit to bowl, what do England look to do at that point? Do they look to keep someone like an Alice Capsey in the top order, or do they look to bring in a specialist bat? What do they look to do with that? So I think it will be kind of a thread to follow across the summer, particularly across the India series. Yeah,
I think it could be the making of Alice Capsey.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly could be. She's definitely got the opportunity to do that. Obviously, she's such a talent, especially also, I guess, what this does also emphasise, and you also get this with Nat Sciver-Brunt's injury too, is the fact that she's not bowling, is that actually these players aren't going to be around forever. This hamstring thing is something that Knight's been kind of negotiating her whole career, but eventually, it does get champion. And it's worth stressing just how much this is kind of like beyond the worst case that you felt when you saw, because like that injury looked pretty innocuous actually. Like she kept batting even though you could see that she was injured, and you think like, okay, grade 1, then she maybe misses the T20s, but she's back for India, or maybe a grade 2 tear, then she misses the India series, but she's back for the 100. For it to be like a tendon injury, not even like a real hamstring muscular thing, is just kind of like a new level of seriousness. And the fact that like they're not even saying yet she'll be back for the World Cup, it's like that's what they're hoping. There is a chance that England have to start preparing for life beyond, well, I think originally people were thinking like they need to start thinking about life beyond Sciver-Brunt, but actually life beyond Knight is the thing that now feels quite present. But yeah, a real chance for Alice Capsey, and it'd be really fascinating to see how she gels with the new Charlotte Edwards sort of hard-headed, ruthless era for a player who in some ways sort of embodied, from the batting side at least, the kind of the free-spirited and occasionally quite I guess profligate attitude under John Lewis. So yeah, a massive chance for her.
I think it could be the making of her, because I've said this a few times before, but she's never been given a proper run in the positions that she does well in domestic cricket for the England team, and this is the first time there's been a slot that's properly opened up for her, especially in 50 over cricket.
Yeah, it's also worth pointing out that Capsy does bat higher up the order for Surrey at domestic level, and she's played 2 of the innings of the summer so far in her last 2 domestic matches. She scored a century against, it was the Blaze in that amazing one-day game where she basically mastered the chase entirely by herself. I think we talked about it. I can't remember when it was now. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. But it genuinely was an incredible knock where she almost chased it down single-handed. And Surrey really had no right to win that game. And then she also scored 89 off 45 balls in a T20 in the Women's T20 County Cup. So she comes into that ODI side off a significant wave of form, batting up the order as well.
Yeah, that innings in the Metrobank was on the same day as the squad was announced. Is that right? Yeah. So when that happened, you're kind of looking at it thinking is it a mistake that she's not in there? If this had come 3 days earlier, would she be in that squad? Well, now she is in that squad, and as Jess says, massive chance.
Katya, thoughts on how the newbies/returnees fared? Em Arlott on debut, Lindsay Smith and Izzy Wong.
Yeah, I guess Em Arlott is the standout from that, particularly at Hove. She bowled really, really well. Was it 3 wickets for very few runs? And also the way she bowled was also quite impressive. So at Canterbury, she had been brought on, I think, first or second change later in the first 10 overs. And then she was brought on to open in the second over at Hove. And she kind of does feel like a player who, we had her on the pod, but she feels like she thrives off that kind of confidence and that kind of responsibility put on her. But she got some really nice shape and bowled really skillfully. And that was really positive. So I think of the 3, she's the one who stands out to me purely because we knew that Lindsay Smith was really good at international level already. But Lindsay Smith has been absolutely brilliant, and I think that poses a really interesting question for how England then look to balance their spin attack going forward. You made the point on the dailies that under previous regimes England have just looked to get variety into their spin attack quite a lot, so they've often played Sarah Glenn, Sophie Eccleston and Charlie Dean because they give you so many different angles and different ways that they spin. But just because Lindsay Smith is a left arm spinner and Sophie Eccleston is a left arm spinner doesn't mean they're the same bowler.
Yeah, I think it's superficial variety. I think Lindsay Smith is a completely different bowler to Sophie Eccleston. So you can have, sure, they're both slow left arm bowlers, but you can have them in the same side and they're a total different prospect for batters to face. I think she's really good. And the one thing about a series like this, where if we're acknowledging that West Indies, Matthews aside, weren't great, then there's a danger of reading too much into performances from English players. But I do think with Arlott was very impressive, and you could see why she has such a good record in the 100. So basically, if you look at the leading run scorers and leading wicket takers in the 100, they're all international regulars, basically. And Arlott's name stands out as someone who wasn't playing international cricket, yet was always up there, takes lots of wickets, good economy rate. She's very good at taking pace off the ball. And you saw that in quite a few of her wickets. With Lindsay Smith, I thought in the first game in particular, just her head-to-head to Matthews was very interesting. Like, she was very, very good to Matthews. And I think that is almost more significant than what her end-of-series numbers are.
And also on that, looking at the context of basically how did they go via Matthews versus how did they go via the rest, it was Arlott who got it with a really good, skillful piece of bowling in that second game, the one game where Matthews didn't get a score. And so if you can do that with the new ball against the best players in the world, that really stands you in good stead. And I guess we haven't really mentioned Izzy Wong as much there. And I guess like she didn't have a bad series by any means. And actually, you look at the numbers, especially the economy rate, and you might think like, oh, well, it's great that she's got that control. She was the most economical of England's seamers, only second most economical after Lindsay Smith among all England's bowlers. But actually, she was a bit more expensive in the first game when I guess Matthews did get a hold of a few bowlers. And the second game, she comes on, I think, as the 5th bowler. So after Matthews is out, and then has a slightly easier ride of it. So it's I'm just saying, like, if you look at the numbers, think like, oh, great, the control is like right there. She bowled well, and there's definitely really encouraging signs. But I'd just say that like there's probably a reason why when they wanted to give Sarah Glenn a game for the final game, it was Izzy Wong who missed out rather than one of the other two seamers, I guess.
You're right. Next up, Lauren Winfield-Hill.
Lauren, England are about to go into the 50 over leg of the West Indies series, slightly more consequential given the proximity of that World Cup. What do you think they learned from the T20 series? Because the first 2 matches in particular felt like complete mismatches.
Yeah, I think they learnt a lot about the new inclusions in terms of Emma Lott. Not Lindsay Smith's not a new inclusion, but for her to play a full role in the series rather than sort of be Sophie Eccleston's understudy. And Izzy Wong, I thought those three were great inclusions. I thought they brought energy. I thought they bowled really well. They certainly added in the fielding, I think, big time, especially Lindsay in terms of her ability to, sweep twos, dive on the boundary, pop off throws real quick. Yeah, and I mean, what we learnt about the rest was probably what we already knew, like Heather and Nat are world-class performers. Dunks looks like she's getting close to somewhere near that we saw like 2 or 3 years ago, which is exciting. Yeah, I thought they played well without being like mind-blowingly brilliant. And it is always hard against a team like West Indies to really know where you're at. I mean, they'll certainly be scratching their heads and coming up with some plans on how to get one-man band out in terms of Hayley Matthews.
How do you approach that kind of series as a player? Because I was thinking about it, and when West Indies squad was announced, and you can see that Deandra Dottin's not in it, and Chanel Henry's not in it, Stefani Taylor didn't play the first match. Surely, as a player, especially an England player, you're thinking, well, we should really win this. So how do you approach those kinds of situations?
Yeah, I mean, if I was a player and I saw that those girls weren't playing, I'd be pretty sad that you don't get the same challenge of competition. As well, even like Shemaine Campbell missing, she's hugely experienced. Like their middle order without, Taylor, Dottin, Henry, Campbell is quite bleak, isn't it? It helps in the sense that there's a new coach, so everyone's wanting to prove themselves and to, show what they can do. Young players who haven't been selected before, haven't played for a while, will obviously want to use that chance to sort of put their best foot forward and put their stamp on it. But yeah, it's certainly a different challenge with those, because a team like West Indies, they don't have the same depth that an England or an Australia or an India sort of have. So as soon as you lose a couple of your best players, it quite quickly looks very different.
And having played just on the West Indies, you played in the women's CPL last year. From that experience, what did you make of that talent pool below the international level? Because I think we've all been a bit shocked to see just how big, not just the disparity between England and West Indies is, but Hayley Matthews and the West Indies.
Yeah, it's probably twofold. I think Hayley Matthews is probably one of the best players in the world right now. Like, she is head and shoulders above most female players in the world. I think there is some talent coming through. I think Glasgow's a good talent. I think Zayda James will be a good player. They're probably just like 4 or 5 years behind, in terms of being genuinely good international cricketers, and I think that's just going to take a little bit of time. Like, there is some decent youngsters playing over there, obviously playing in the CPL. There's a nice leggy that played for Guyana that will be good, but it's just going to take time, because their program and their support and is just behind where other teams are at, where the best teams are at. And it's going to I think Zayda James will be a really good cricketer. She bowls nicely. She shapes up well with the bat. She's a gun fielder, but she's still in the infancy of her career. So it's going to take time. And you think some of those players, like, they wouldn't get into other teams for like another 2-3 years, whereas you get into those weaker teams a lot younger and you're still expected to perform as an international. So I think it's just going to take a few years until we see the sort of talent come to the forefront.
One of the things that I was thinking about, particularly watching the first game in Canterbury, was the different jobs that Hayley Matthews has got on her hands compared to Nat Sciver-Brunt. What did you make of Nat Sciver-Brunt in her first outing as captain? How did you see her presence on the field?
Yeah, I think I thought she did a good job. I think what you're going to get from Nat is going to be different to what like a typical, if you list traits of a leader, like, you're not going to get animation and like loads of emotion. We've spoken about that before, but I thought she mixed the bowlers well. I thought she bowled. I liked that she didn't just operate certain bowlers from certain ends. There was lots of chopping and changing. She kept seam on when the conditions were right instead of, traditionally she'd go to Lindsay Smith earlier, but in the last T20 she kept seam on, so she read conditions in the game really well in that sense. I think, like I said, I think it's just about, okay, well, how do we put together a plan to get Hayley Matthews out? Like you've got to go for the queen and knock her off, off her throne, and the rest sort of fall. So I think she'll be thinking of ways in which she can combat that. But all in all, I thought she played the conditions well. I liked that it wasn't very formulaic, like in terms of it. So, it has, I think in the past, it has been very Sophie bowls here, Charlie bowls here, Belly bowls here, and it wasn't. It was seamers operating from either end, spinners coming on at different times. So I like that.
County Cup Finals Day took place last Monday. Lancashire beat Surrey in the final by 32 runs. Sophie Eccleston took 4 wickets in that game, having also taken 3 in the semi-final win over the Blaze, so massive day out for her. 2 really good semi-finals as well. Surrey beat Warwickshire by 3 wickets with just 2 balls remaining. The Lancs Blaze game was also pretty tight for a while. Lauren, how do you think the competition went? This was like the brand new shiny FA Cup style tournament the ECB billed as like the most exciting part of the new structure. Did it feel like that?
Yeah, I think it was a great addition. I mean, it's obviously coming from, I'm playing tier 2 at the minute. So how the tier 1 teams, how they sort of focused on it was different from team to team and stage to stage. Some teams very much rested playing and gave other people an opportunity. Some people played their full strength team. But I think as the competition went on, like it got better and better, and people were playing their best 11 in it to win it. So I think it was a great addition. I think it's good to see what else is out there. There might be a couple of players from the lower leagues that you would have never have come across, and you think actually she's a really good player. Like other teams could potentially be looking at them for the future and things like that. So I think for the broader development of the game, I think it was a really good competition, and ultimately, like that the best teams are going to get to finals day and to win it. So it very quickly turns into very much like heat of competition.
One thing that was mentioned before it started was the possibility of like giant killings. So tier 3 or tier 2 teams pulling a fast one over a tier 1 side or the like. We didn't really see much, if any, of that. Do you think the competition from a punter point of view holds enough interest when that doesn't happen?
Oh, you have to ask the punter. Yeah, I do. I think it can be very the difference between standards of tiers is quite obvious to see at times. I think, there's clearly differences. I think calling the fact that there'll be some giant wake-up calls was probably not really realistic in the first place. So if you're waiting for that to happen, you're probably going to be waiting a long time. But what you are going to get is some players amongst those teams that can very much run it with the best domestic talent. I think we're a way off, that happening in terms of a tier 3 team beating a tier 1 team. Like you never say never, but I don't think that's realistic. All things considered, like in the women's game, the program that a tier 3 side has versus a tier 1 side, even a tier 2 side versus a tier 1 side, is so different, in terms of the support and the training and the, professionalism or the unprofessionalism. It's so different. Whereas you look at if you did that in a men's game, probably a lot of those men's players would be on academies, would be playing second team cricket, etc., where you're still very much supported as a professional cricketer. So I think in the women's game, you have to consider there's some pretty stark differences between the programs and the tiers.
What it has done is allow, with the England players going away and sides fielding maybe different sides in the County Cup comp, is allow players who aren't necessarily on England's radar to shine through. We saw Tilly Kestevan in the final score a match-defining 77 against the bowling attack, which contained Rihanna McDonald-Gay, Tilly Courtine-Coleman and Phoebe Franklin. Seren Smale, who's people will have heard of a bit more, she also did really well, and Josie Groves as well. Who impressed you looking around the different sides?
I think definitely Tilly. I think she's someone that actually has done really well for the Lancs Academy, and we've like, that's a prime example. I know it wasn't an England player, like Eve Jones is obviously out injured, but things like that where they get an opportunity to play, like Alexia Stonehouse, obviously we've seen a fair bit of, but consistent run in that competition. Seren finding some form, because I know she's had little glimmers this summer, but not necessarily fired, as yet. Even someone like Hannah Rainey, like played for Warwickshire, and she's not really ever got a game for Lancs, or very, few and far between. Like someone like her going out on loan and getting an opportunity to play. So it just gives other people a go. You don't want to be carrying drinks all summer in a tier 1 team and not getting an opportunity. So I think that's where it's been really good.
The domestic calendar rolls on. You'll play your first match in Essex colours tomorrow in the Blast Curtain Raiser at Utility Bowl. Have you got used to wearing the red and blue yet?
Yeah, no, it's first day at my new school today. So no, it's good, great crew. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's been quite a nice little ease into the summer for me, really. Like that's been the beauty of tier 2, is the schedule hasn't been as hectic. So I'm really looking forward to this like T20 block with the Essex girls. So it should be good.
It feels like this is the blockbuster part of the summer coming up now, right? The double headers and the run into finals day in July at the Oval.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I was saying to the girls, like the double header thing and being at a lot of the main grounds, like it feels like sort of a baby 100, which is a great. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a much improved competition from last year when you predominantly had standalone games. You've got some Sky coverage, you've got some telly coverage. Like it feels like a really important part of the summer, and that summer's really starting now. So yeah, I think this comp will be great. There's like a lot of good overseas that are over. That like if you can attract Elise Perry over, it's it's something that's worth doing. So I think it's going to be great, and yeah, I think that the double headers and all that I see like a real good improvement from last year.
Well, cheers, Laura. We'll catch up with you next week, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
And finally on today's show, this week sees the start of the Vitality Blast. It is packed full of double headers alongside the men's competition, and to mark the start of it, Katya spoke to one of the titans of the English domestic game, Georgia Adams.
Very excitingly, I'm joined by Hampshire captain Georgia Adams as we look towards the start of the inaugural edition of the Women's Vitality T20 Blast, which begins tomorrow at time of recording. That's this Friday. Just as a reminder for how the competition works, very similar to the men's format, but Tier 1 counties will compete in the top league of the Blast against other Tier 1 counties, while there is also a Tier 2 competition, and Tier 1 finals day is set for July the 27th at the Oval. This weekend is Blast Off weekend, which will feature 10 double headers with the men's Blast alongside the men's Blast from Friday to Sunday. Those are the first of a whopping 52 double headers across 20 venues over the season. Georgia, Hampshire are kicking off on the first day of the competition with a double header at Utility Bowl, where I believe you are right now, against Essex, who you scored a century against in the One Day Cup recently. How's the prep been going for the Blast?
Yeah, it's been going well. I think we're really benefiting from the new tiered structure, because obviously with Tier 2 cricket going ahead now, we've got quite a few players on loan that we can send off to get some extra cricket in, as well as, we've got a second 11 here at Hampshire, and a few other teams do as well. So there's a game going on right now ahead of tomorrow, which quite a few of our players are playing in. And we all sort of played a couple of games last week as well to get ourselves ready. But yeah, there's always a lot of excitement around T20s. I think players always look forward to it. It's fast, it's fun. Hopefully all the fans come down, and yeah, it feels like it feels all quite new again. I think being in the new structure and being under Hampshire now in new colours, and sort of having two teams, one club, hopefully, we can get loads of fans in, which will be really cool.
It kind of feels like there's been a little bit of flitting across formats, because we started with the One Day Cup, and then we went into County Cup, which has just finished, and now we're in Blast again. Has that been kind of difficult to navigate across the first half of the season, or has that been fine?
I think I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a challenge, but equally it's not something that's new. I think even with the structural changes to the women's game, we've always been relatively used to flitting around between formats, and something that we've sort of always had to juggle and make sure that we've got players prepped for both formats, and potentially looking at even resting some players to make sure they're fit to go, because obviously with the T20 comes a lot more sort of double back-to-back games or double headers, and they seem to come thick and fast. But yeah, I think we're pretty accustomed now to dealing with the flitting between formats, and obviously the women's game is progressing so well now that players have learned to become a lot more adaptable. They've worked hard, and we've all worked really hard on adapting our games across both formats, and we are starting to see players develop in the ranks as specialists too. I think that's what's quite exciting to see in the men's game. You sort of have white ball contracts and red ball contracts, and I think the women's game is slowly progressing towards possibly having 50 over contracts and T20 contracts with the way it's going. So yeah, we're ready and we're used to it. And like I said, just really look forward to. There's always a lot of excitement around T20, so it comes at a nice part in the middle of the season. Bit of a mental break from the roller coaster ride of 50 over cricket, and get out there and be able to express ourselves in some T20.
And double headers have been the flagship part of the ECB's strategy for accelerating the growth of the women's domestic game. As a player, why are they so special to play in?
Well, I think it's no secret that the 100 has had a huge impact on the progression of the women's game, and also the exposure of the women's game to the public. So I think with the 100 format being solely double headers, and fans get to see 2 games in a day, and you effectively get 2 for the price of 1. It seems like a great model to try and push into county cricket. So I'm really hoping that fans do want to come down and watch, and come down and see our games and get in early before the men's games, because it's worked brilliantly so far. And yeah, I think it's brilliant for families who possibly want to stay and have watch a lot of cricket, but don't want to stay right to the end, or don't want to stay too late for the men, so they can watch half the women's, half the men's. A lot of people I've spoken to have said it sort of brings a nice dynamic to them, because they can get their kids in early, watch some cricket and get home, and then the ones that want to stay on and have a great time can.
And we've spoken on this podcast before about the 2 teams, 1 club mentality that's been introduced by this structure across the tier format. I keep wanting to say regional, across the tier format.
It's been a big adjustment.
The Blast feels like that's where that kind of relationship is going to be cemented or come to the fore.
Yeah, I think obviously with T20 cricket being a lot more fast-paced, a shorter format, it's only appropriate that we sort of bring the 2 teams together in that format. I think 50 over cricket could be a little bit of a challenge, but what's been really nice, I think, for us here at Hampshire, not too much has changed in terms of the day-to-day running of everything. Hampshire cricket have been absolutely phenomenal with us, even when we were in our regional teams, the Southern Vipers, in terms of taking us in, us training in and around the men, building relationships alongside the men's team. So it's been quite nice actually to almost cement it a bit more. And I think now we are under the same clothing, we're under the same branding. It just feels that extra special, I guess, in a way, because it doesn't feel too different from the day-to-day running. But it is nice that we're now all aligned as one family almost. So yeah, I think the T20s will be really nice to bring all the women's counties together with their men's counties. And yeah, hopefully, I think what we're all hoping for is that the fans sort of engage and come down and watch us play and enjoy it, and see what how good women's cricket is, and what females can do now.
And we all look at the men's finals day at Edgbaston as one of the marquee events of the summer. I've been as a fan before and can attest that it is a brilliant day out. We used to have the Charlotte Edwards Cup finals day, but that didn't have the same big event feel around it. It must be a really big incentive to have that properly booked as a major event in the English domestic calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, finals days are so pivotal in terms of just building that enjoyment, but also getting domestic players used to, playing under pressure and getting used to those big moments. Nothing quite replicates it. So I think having a finals day booked in, it just adds to adds to the excitement and adds to the draw of wanting to do well in these competitions and make it all the way. And I think, yeah, that's what possibly in the last few years we've lacked at our final days. I always think the final days have been brilliantly run, but we probably haven't had the crowds coming in to those final days that we'd want in an ideal world. So I think hopefully moving forward, if we can keep getting finals days at, you know, the bigger venues, bigger grounds, and we can market it well, hopefully, you know, even one day we might be able to do something where we play alongside the men in a finals day too, which will be really cool.
And just taking a look at Hampshire's season so far, you're currently leading the way in the Metrobank One Day Cup standings after 8 rounds of action. You had a pretty difficult start to the season, losing Charlotte Edwards as a head coach literally just before the season starts. There's still a headshot of Charlotte Edwards as women's head coach at Hampshire on Getty, just as she was named England head coach. How's it been adapting to life after Lottie?
Yeah, it's do you know what? I think I couldn't be prouder of the playing group and, you know, the staff group too, and the management group that we've got down here, because she was such a huge part of this club, and certainly was a big character too, in terms of her demeanor and her management. So I don't think anyone quite knew how it was going to go. We knew that going interim was going to be the right call for us as a club, and keeping things familiar for the time being, so it wasn't such a huge, massive change for the players. And yeah, everyone's just cracked on. I think, albeit the timing wasn't great, in a way, because we were our season's so manic and the games come thick and fast, we probably haven't had too much time to think about things too much, and we just had to crack on and get it done. And players have stepped up. The leaders in the group have really stepped up, and the senior players have stepped up. And Paul Pritchard, who's taken over, he's obviously a very familiar face around the ground, and he's a very, very well respected and very knowledgeable man. So I think having him take on the reins has just been fantastic, because it's been really nice for me sort of working with him, less in a batting coach capacity and more in a head coach capacity. But he's very, very calm, very level, and he's probably the sort of character that we've needed, given such a huge change in the head coach role. So yeah, it's been plain sailing. I wasn't expecting us to maybe be sitting at the top, but this season did have a little bit of a feel to it, like it felt 5 years ago when we first went into the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy after COVID. And we got a few new faces around the group. A few of our youngsters have stepped up on senior contracts, on their first pro contracts. And, you know, I can't fault the vibe and the atmosphere of the team. It's been really good fun. And we're just trying to play for each other. Take each game as it comes, and it served us pretty well. But equally, well aware with our season, we flit about all over the place. There's still quite a long way to go.
When John Lewis resigned from the England role, did you think straight away, might be out of a coach here?
Yeah, I think I had an inkling. I think knowing and working with Lottie for 5 years, I think based on how she acted and how she felt when the job came around first time round, or probably 2.5 years ago now, when John Lewis first took on the role, she was pretty adamant then that she wasn't ready to do it. And this time she gave nothing away. And in her giving nothing away, I sort of had half an eye on, okay, I reckon she'd be interested in it. And the club were prepared. We made sure that we had sort of a 2-week limbo phase where we didn't directly know from Lottie herself, because no one sort of really wanted to back her into a corner and ask her, I guess. But we made sure we had some contingency plans in place to make sure we were prepared for whatever ended up happening. But yeah, I think we as a club knew that, you know, we want to support her. She's been brilliant in terms of what she's given to us in the last 5 years. And I think credit to Lottie as well, because I think the legacy that she's left behind, and like for me on a personal note, in how she's been such a great mentor from a leadership point of view, I feel more prepared than I've ever felt from a captaincy point of view, off the back of spending 5 years learning from one of the best coaches I've worked with. So I think she's left everyone in really good stead, which is testament to her, because she has such a huge impact on people here. And like I said, our management group have just been they've worked relentlessly, bless them, but they're great. We've got some great people involved, and everyone stepped up.
I guess as well, so much of the then Vipers' dominance was attributed to the environment that Lottie created. Does it feel as well a little bit of a vindication for the playing group that you're still at the top of the table, even though she's now not there?
Yeah, I think so. I think when we embarked on the journey 5 years ago, obviously I played under Lottie as a captain on the field, and she was quite a I don't know how I'd describe her as a captain. She was tough, and she was pretty fierce and fiercely competitive. And actually, as a coach, I was, we sat down 5 years ago and worked with the 5 pros then at the time on making sure that we build culture and we put culture first, because we knew that if we want to win games of cricket and have repeat success, you've got to get your culture right, and you've got to put those pillars in place early doors, which we and a lot of those players actually aren't here now that were quite heavily involved in that, but people like Tara Norris, Paige Schofield, we sat down and we worked a lot with Lottie on values, on how we wanted to operate as a team. And I think what's really lovely is 5 years later, or nearly 6 years later, we're now playing under Hampshire. I think the players are driving our values and our culture more than ever, which again is such a nice feeling that all sort of Adam Carty can't be forgotten in that as well. Our director of cricket, all of their hard work in those initial phases is actually the reward of it now.
Back on the blast a little bit as well, you've got the very exciting signing of Elise Perry for 6 July games. That's an extraordinary get.
Yeah, I think I joked around. I was really, really privileged enough to be involved with Sydney Thunder in the winter, and obviously Lottie was out with the Sydney Sixers, and just met her for coffee one day just to have a general catch up towards the back end of the tournament. And I said to her, do you know what? I would love if you can pull off getting Elise Perry to Hampshire in some capacity. It would be phenomenal, and less so not taking anything away from the player that she is, because I think we all know the caliber of cricketer that Elise Perry is on field. But I think for the group that we've got this year, having someone like Elise come into this environment and, talk to some of the players that we've got and be around this group who we're pretty young. We've got a lot of younger players, would be so powerful. So I sort of left it with Lottie, and she said, I'll see what I can do, quite casually. So then when we got the news and when we got the go ahead that it was going to happen, I wish some of the faces on the girls was excellent. It was brilliant to watch, and a few jaws dropped. But yeah, she'll have a huge impact for us here. But I think, I think we're keen. Sort of the impact off field is very much just as important as the impact on the field as a player, because we know what she can do, and hopefully she'll enjoy her time with us. But yeah, we're super excited to get her in the yellow and blue.
Well, if you want to see Elise Perry in action in Hampshire colours, her first game is scheduled for July 4th against the Blaze. As I said earlier, the first round of the Blast kicks off tomorrow. Genuinely get yourself down if you can, and there's a game near you. It should be a really fun day out. Cheers, Georgia, and good luck for tomorrow.
Thanks so much.
That is everything for today's show. Cheers for listening. We'll be back next week.